How can we make the world better? By making ourselves better. The Dr. Joe Show explores how you can make positive personal change by using his groundbreaking and highly effective I Am approach to understand who we are and why we do what we do. Your small changes can have big effects.
Join us now for the Dr. Joe Show with Mark Stiles of Stiles Law and your host, Dr. Joe Schrand.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, NBs and otherwise, friends, enemies, welcome to the Dr. Joe Show.
Yay! Tom, as always, you are impressive. And I, just so people know, we did a wonderful show, and I know I've said this before last couple of weeks, but we've changed our introduction as a response to one of our guests, Rainey, who said that it was a little bit still off to just be saying ladies and gentlemen, and they were absolutely right. And so we were talking about that, and I said, thanks for calling me out. And then later they said, no, we've called you in, which I thought was wonderful. We've called you in, you're in the group. And so we are, we're there. I wonder, with that in mind, whether you could introduce our guests for tonight.
Well, Dr. Joe, we have two incredible guests, both alumni of the Dr. Joe Show. You'll be pleased to know. We have Zoe Bradford of the Company Theater and Brendan Mulhern from Chicago, now in New York.
Right. And welcome, my friends. And yes, for your return appearance on the Dr. Joe Show. I so appreciate it. I really do. And what I wanted to talk with you guys about is what's happening at Company Theater. And Zoe, you want to start? Tell us what show is on so we can get people to get there.
Sure. Well, first of all, it's fun to be on the show. Great to see all of you here. And Brendan, we have worked with before, many years ago, before he did some various moves. And, it's all about actors. I'm telling you, we have a very strong cast who are performing a show called Something Rotten. Now, Something Rotten doesn't sound very appealing, but it's a little play on words. Something rotten in Denmark, as you know, is a line from Hamlet. And this is a satire on Shakespeare, but you don't have to know about Shakespeare to enjoy this musical comedy. It's really a satire on musical comedies as much as it is about Shakespeare, the Renaissance, and that wonderful period where there were so many changes happening, which it sort of feels like we may be coming into one right now, coming out of the pandemic. So anyway, we're having a total blast working on this show because the talent level is extraordinary and they really know how to make it fun. So we don't talk in the traditional Shakespearean language, except to poke a little bit of fun in it, but a lot of the classic lines from Shakespeare creep up in funny ways.
Wow, this sounds incredible. And for people who are or are not Shakespeare fans, this sounds like a musical to go to see. And where is it playing?
So we're at the Company Theater, of course, in Norwell. And this is tonight we're performing at 7:30, but then we only have 3 more performances left over the weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And then we will have concluded. We have been running for 2 weeks. We've gotten rave reviews, standing ovations every night. I mean, I couldn't be happier with the response from this show. And like I say, you don't have to really know Shakespeare or history per se to appreciate it. You're just going to get the jokes, and they are hilarious. This is such a well-crafted script and score. The score is very catchy and interesting and fun to sing. It's got a little gospel overtones and classical musical theater, great big choreo numbers and kick lines and all that kind of stuff. But it also has super clever lines in it as we go on this little journey with the Bottom brothers, who are living in the shadow of William Shakespeare. And they just can't seem to write a hit. So the premise of the show is that one brother decides to see a soothsayer, a Nostradamus, but it's not the Nostradamus, it's his cousin Thomas Nostradamus. And cousin Thomas does not have the same gifts as his profound brother and gets history a little bit wrong. But he has a vision on what the latest and greatest and most incredible thing in the future will be is musicals. So with that in mind, He gets a little bit of information into everything he predicts, but it's all a little askew, and that's part of the fun.
That's a great overview. I cannot wait to see it.
Yeah, you'll love it.
I'm just so curious because Shakespeare, everybody, well, I think most people know about Shakespeare. Brendan is in many ways a Shakespeare expert, having honestly done one of the greatest performances of Macbeth I have ever seen, playing the lead role, Macbeth. And you're now a graduate of quite a auspicious drama school. And tell us what you know about Shakespeare, Brendan.
Well, I really appreciate you referring to me as an expert. I don't know that I would necessarily go that far. There are people that are far more knowledgeable and experienced than me, but I do have a deep passion for it, and I love learning more and exploring his works with every opportunity that I get. Also, thank you for your praise of my performance. We actors are very thin, and we need as much pats on the back and applause as we can get. That's what keeps us alive. So thank you very much. What I love about Shakespeare, and actually what works really well with Something Rotten, is just that accessibility. I think a lot of people sometimes think that Shakespeare is unapproachable. They see the language and they see something that maybe they don't understand right off the bat, or they see performances where they don't really understand the language and things like that. And they also might not have an opportunity to have explored the world in which William Shakespeare was writing. And so a show like Something Rotten, which shows just how competitive it was in William Shakespeare's time to create theater, just as it is today. The backstabbing and the thievery, maybe outright thievery, that went on at the time because copyright laws didn't exist. So in the sense that thievery was legal and accepted and almost expected. I think Something Rotten really paints a great picture of the Elizabethan world that William Shakespeare lived in, and actually bridges the gap between how things were going on at the time and how theater is made at the highest echelons in America today. So if you are going to go to see the show, you'll see an amazing musical and a great comedy done by people that I've had the pleasure of working with, Chris Hagberg. I believe Melissa Carubia is in it as well. The two people who I love and appreciate greatly. You'll see a really great show that actually will educate you as to how things actually were at the time.
Yeah, I would say it's emphasis on the accessibility, because isn't that kind of a hallmark of Shakespeare too in his time, was that it worked on multiple levels? I could be completely wrong here, but from what I understand, it's like if you were the highly educated, you would understand like the deeper meaning. But if you were a groundling and just there for a good show, it was like Married with Children.
Yeah, well, Shakespeare, sometimes the word genius is thrown around a bit loosely these days, but Shakespeare truly was a genius, and not only just in his ability to write plays and write characters that represent the deepest human flaws and ambitions and loves and jealousies, but he was also able to speak to any audience that you wanted, be it kings and queens, literal queens and kings, and as you say, the groundlings. And you could have some like just amazing language and themes and poetry that captures the human essence brilliantly, and also a lot of blood, guts, and popular songs that people could sing along to and get behind. You had extremely villainous villains. You had extremely heroic heroes that people could get behind, but then also have very complex, tragic heroes like Macbeth or Hamlet or Othello that pulled people in and got them to think about humanity at large. So yes, as far as the human condition, Shakespeare, I believe, was a genius.
And in Something Rotten, he's presented as a rock star, so that's kind of fun too.
Right. Yeah. Exactly right. Yeah.
So he was appreciated, you think, in his day, or was this just part of the?
Oh, yes.
Really?
Absolutely.
Huh.
I'm sure there was jealousy abounding, which was what the part of this show is really about. And, they list off all these great writers, Thomas Middleton, Thomas More, all these names that may sound familiar to history class, and they're all kind of, stars in their own right, but Shakespeare is the gem, the jewel in the crown, so to speak. So it's just so fun to see Brad Reinking parading around the stage. He's quite a veteran performer, performs all over the United States. Actually, we were lucky enough to get him to play William Shakespeare, and he's a powerhouse, a small and mighty guy who just can fill a house with his voice and his attitude. So it's a great thing. But there's a love story in it too, and it's all that accessibility. But Shakespeare is famous for, the love, the star-crossed lovers, the unrequited love. All of that is so beautifully portrayed in the works of Shakespeare, and now they're explored in a fun and accessible way in a show like this.
But it's a musical?
It is a musical, and they really make fun of it. I mean, it's just, if you are, even if you're not a huge musical theater fan, it's referencing everything from Annie to the Phantom of the Opera to, because this Nostradamus is getting all these visions. So he just mixes it all up, and they come out with a conglomerate that's just ridiculous. And the sillier it gets, the more you just buy into it. It's really fun. So even if you just lightly know like the Broadway hits, you're going to be really laughing at how they wind it all together into this big mess.
That's fantastic. Well, no, I mean, Nostradamus and I guess his less known brother were famous for predictions. Let's get back into this. We've got two incredible guests here. We've got Zoe Bradford, who's basically one of the creators of company theater. Brendan Mulhern, who is an amazing actor and the creator of many parts, including working on his own show, and perhaps, and can I spill the beans about Richard, or?
Sure. I mean,
I guess I just did.
Yeah. I mean, we are in the very, very, very early stages of trying to put together a production of Richard II. A friend of mine who is an excellent director and I are teaming up to do that. We are in the what should we do phase, so we're probably a couple of years away from putting anything up on stage. But yeah, it's fun to talk about because Richard II actually mentioned in Something Rotten. It's actually one of the catalysts for the Bottom Brothers to do their thing.
Yes, it's a really cute moment where the patron is saying, "I'm going to go see Richard the second," and he and this brother says, well, "The second, he's already done Richard the Third, who goes backwards."
That's great. Just to go back, so is it Elizabeth who is working with you on Richard, or?
Yeah. Elizabeth Swanson, who is an amazing director out in Chicago, Jeff nominated. She's incredible. We work very well together, so we're excited to see what happens. And these things take a long time, so you have to love every aspect of it.
Well, if you're listening, Elizabeth, hello, because she was also a guest on the Dr. Joe show several years ago. Who was she on with? With another wonderful producer out of Broadway. So I'm just wondering, COVID has had such an impact on our entire world. What about the impact on live theater? Zoe, you and I had a discussion about this a year or so ago, because it sounded like things were really impacted. Can you tell us a little bit about theater and COVID and how we're surviving?
Well, I can certainly tell you about our experience and many in the Boston area. It was really a nightmare. I mean, the only good things that came out of COVID were a lot of discussion amongst the theaters in Boston about how we can address racial issues and inclusiveness to improve that, because there was time to really dig in and talk about it. So I did a lot of Zoom meetings about that topic, but really, aside from that, nothing good came of this, because it was really a nightmare. I mean, obviously, Zoom theater is very limited. It does not give you the thrill. It's certainly not, people try to do things online, and I appreciate their efforts, but nothing replaces live theater. And you need that heartbeat of everyone in the same room, feeling the emotions, laughing together, whatever it is, feeling a live orchestra, all of these elements that we so pride ourselves on were totally, not happening at all. So we really got back to work last summer with our production of Rock of Ages, and then quickly had to, kind of tone down a little bit because there was another outbreak. And then we were able to do our Christmas Carol, which sold very well. And then Omicron hit and we had to tuck back in again. So we're just coming out of that now. We're happy to report that, we have had very, very few COVID outbreaks since 2020 amongst cast, crew, anything like that. We've been very cautious, and the few that have isolated, and all of my casts are fully vaccinated. So we're able to perform without masks and so on, and our audience can mask. We were was mandated, but we're lightening that up because the South Shore area of Boston is a remarkably low numbered area. And we're kind of like embracing, the numbers and the CDC guidelines, whatever they suggest, we go with. And right now it's sort of a lift of the mask mandate, but we're still recommending it for our patrons. But you don't have to if you don't want to. And things are definitely on an upswing. So that's good. But it's been a horrible 2 years. Awful. It was, and what I'm feeling so strongly is the loss that people have had, whether it be from their job, the fact that they couldn't see friends, family, grandparents couldn't see grandchildren, children were isolated. All of these issues have come into play as we regather. I'm finding people are very tender. They're not, as emotionally strong maybe as they would have been before the pandemic. It is a struggle and a challenge to make everybody make sure that they feel safe, welcomed, and and in a secure environment where they are once able to do their art again. It's really been a challenge to make sure that people feel more comfortable. But I think particularly because we work with kids a lot at ACT, our Academy of the Company Theater, and at the Company Theater, we have one high school student in Something Rotten, the rest are adults. But, they were isolated without friends and so on. And at school, was very difficult. So I think these factors have had a tremendous amount of impact on us and how we approach our people as we return.
Brendan, you guys were impacted by this too during your schooling.
Oh, sure. I mean, across the industry, theater and film and television as well. I mean, everybody was affected and everybody had to adjust. And it hit the biggest theaters on Broadway as well. The benefit, though, to a certain percentage, producers who could afford to just cut operations and sit and hold on for the thing to pass by, were fine. But there are plenty of union and non-union actors and stage and crew and everybody else who were out of work for 2.5 years and still are struggling to make things work. If I can, just use this moment to sing the praises of the Company Theater and other smaller theaters like that, a place like the Company Theater, which I had the absolute honor of performing in years ago, is truly a family, and its effect and its benefit for the community is vital. Storytelling and community are vital to a good and prosperous and gregarious society. We need to have those discussions. We need to have those places where we can come together and learn and laugh and cry and love. And so, Broadway will be fine. The big theaters will be fine. But if you're in your community, wherever you are, but particularly at South Shore, Massachusetts, where this audience is, a place like the Company Theater needs your support and deserves your support, because the work that they do, the lifeline that they are for the young kids in that community, the types of shows that they put on, the way they bring people together, they do it the right way. And if you're listening to this show and you can have a chance to go to see Something Rotten or anything else that the Company Theater does, now that we are coming back and now that we can be together safely still, and of course, Company Theater and other places are doing an excellent job of making sure that people are safe. Now that we have an opportunity to come together and share in these experiences with one another, now's the time to do it. Go to the show, bring your family, have a night where you see something that moves you, whether it's, laughter, whether it's tears, and then talk about it afterwards, because these were a hole in our souls for these last 2.5 years, is not have these opportunities. So please take advantage now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for saying that, Brendan, because it's so true. The support is truly needed. And I know that a lot of theaters couldn't do it, but we are the little engine that could from the very beginning, because I'm 42 years in now. So, it's I just could never let it not happen.
Right.
It's too important.
Have you been finding though that it is difficult to get the audience back in? Do you think people are still scared?
Yeah, a little bit. We're trying to, make them feel safe. I think people are slow to come out, but once they do and they see how easy it is and how wonderful it is to laugh and how easy it is to get there and park, and we're not really allowing people to eat in the theater. So it doesn't feel like people are breathing all over you kind of thing. You know what I mean? I think we've got some rules in place. It's a little more of the safety factor, but our meeting, if you want to see an actor afterwards, you meet them outside like you do downtown. You don't wait in the lobby. It's because the lobby's smaller than the house, so it would get crowded. So I mean, there's ways to do this that are good, and I hope people will take the chance and come and see something maybe that they don't know, like something rotten, or just come and see. We're going to do Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat with our youth. A nice old classic. So that's running the end of April, the last 2 weekends. So I mean, whatever appeals to you, it's great. But you just got to get out and support and do it, because you'll feel better, having some of your life back.
Yeah. And I'm going to also echo the endorsement, because I did go to Company Theater to see Christmas Carol. And in large part, not just because I wanted to get into theater and be with the crowd again and feel that oxytocin rush and that incredible energy, but also because I knew many people in the cast, including Tom McCoy, who was in the cast of Christmas Carol.
That's right. I was Baby Scrooge.
You look youthful. No, it was very good.
And I will say that I also had the honor and privilege of being in Christmas Carol, I think maybe 10 or 15 years before, with two of my children. It is incredible. And folks, this is what Company Theater is. It's about family. It's about that unique experience where people come together and give of themselves. Theater is, I think, the most incredible art form, because there you are, basically on stage, bearing your soul, and the audience then responds. We do this with Drug Story Theater, where we've taken theater for kids in recovery, and they get up on stage, and the experience they have contributes to their sobriety, because the audience is so grateful. It may be scary right now, but having been at Company Theater and knowing the safety precautions, it's just so insane, isn't it, that we have to even talk about this, the safety precautions to go and see a live show. It's like mind-boggling, but it's now part of our world. It's part of our culture. And I think that is part of our evolution. And I think, to get back to it, that's part of what Shakespeare is so dominant in, because he talked about things hundreds of years ago that still resonate with us today. I mean, he had some great jokes, absolutely puns. Brendan is like, go ahead.
He's a pun master. Some of them don't read the same way today as they did back then, simply because of language and how senses of humor change or things like that. But it doesn't matter. It could be Lear. It could be Much Ado About Nothing. There's always going to be just a lot of wordplay in there that you get to explore and decide how you're going to, perform that for the audience. Yeah. One of my favorite examples of him mixing comedy and tragedy is in Macbeth, when after the murder of Duncan has happened, and Macduff calls on the castle, and he gets sent up to see the king. But before he discovers Duncan's body, Lennox talks to Macbeth about how awful the night it was, about how the storms were raging, and it was really portentous that bad things have happened, and they couldn't even keep their camp straight, and they were scared to fall asleep. And he goes this long thing about how awful the night was and how scary it was. And the whole time Macbeth just is standing there listening, and then when he's done, I don't know, it's about 20 lines about how bad it was, Macbeth just goes, "It was a rough night." And it's this brief moment of just, hilarious comedy that to just give you a little bit of a release from what has happened, because it's right in the middle of Duncan being murdered and Lady M and Macbeth kind of going crazy about that whole thing, and Macduff discovering it and setting off the events of the last half of the play. But just a little bit of a lift. Shakespeare knew to give you a lift, when you needed it, just to help propel you into the bloodbath that's to come.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Incredible. And that, Tom, did you want to say something about this, or?
Well, no, it's just I also recently learned that during the Elizabethan era, no matter what the subject of the play was, they would usually have like a comedic jig afterwards as sort of an after dinner mince.
And that's part, I think, of why it resonates so well.
It was interesting that when Something Rotten was written, it was the end of 2016. It was coming to Broadway, and there's a number in it. The brothers are just trying to brew up what would make a great musical, and they come up with this theme. It has to be an epic event, and so they have this big number called The Black Death, which is about the plague. Now, this is way before we ever knew that the pandemic was coming, but it is absolutely bring the house down funny. And it's really important to be able to laugh at yourself, laugh at your own situations. That number is just killer. The Grim Reapers are coming out with the famous crow face, and the guys the troop is all singing about the Black Death and how disgusting it is, and very graphically, and it's really a hilarious number. I know it doesn't sound funny to tell it, but when you're in it, it truly is. And I'm like, yeah, it's really really important to be able to step back and say, well, we can find humor in anything.
Absolutely.
My favorite lyric from that song is "What's that coming out your pee-pee?"
Right. They do sing that.
A very adult musical for a very adult audience.
I don't know if you can say that on the radio. I guess.
Tom, we learn so much about you every show. I'm
They do, don't they?
not exactly sure why that's your favorite line, but we will leave it to the imagination of
It's a funny word.
Audience. It's a good one. And just to go back to it, so it's playing at Company Theater right now, and people can get tickets online, and I understand there may even be a discount.
Right. Well, I thought it'd be fun to offer a discount for Dr. Joe listeners. So we just thought you could just do this promo code Joe. So go online, type in Joe, and you're going to get $8 off. That's a really good deal.
That is a really good deal. That's Joe, J-O-E, Joe. I think that's wonderful. That's so sweet of you. Thank you.
Oh, that'll be nice. Yeah.
So there is a tradition at Company Theater of getting people into the theater, not just with these coupons, but Zoe, I wonder whether you could talk about some of the ways that you've gotten some people into the theater who really needed to be there.
Oh, yes. Oh my gosh. Once again, I just feel like that loneliness had really set in on for people. And so, by having the chutzpah to do theater, and basically we were the only people doing theater because we were doing outdoor theater, which I know was very unique because I didn't really see too many other people toughing it out. But we did collaborated with the Hingham Historical Society and did a haunted Hingham tour. I live in Hingham, and I researched some information. We got permission to go into this fabulous cemetery and also through some historic homes. And I got actors together, and it was all very safe because it was all outdoors. And oh my God, what a riot. I mean, I really kind of feel like an expert at outdoor theater now. It is hard. It is totally different than what you'd ever be used to if you're used to performing indoors. But it was really fun and stimulating. So that, when in my collaboration, the Hingham Historical Society was like, well, should we run it 1 or 2 nights or maybe 5 nights? I said, no, run it the month. Watch it blow up. And boy, it did. I mean, you couldn't hardly get a ticket to the thing. So we did it again in 2021, and we're going to do a little more limited version in 2022 because we've got a lot going on in the fall, but we're still going to offer some of that again. And it was really a blast. So we did that. Then we went on to really do a creative thing with a Victorian Christmas kind of festival kind of thing on property. And that got us up to, through December. I mean, it was low money for what we're used to having to live on. All of my staff was furloughed, but everybody was pitching in. They're just like, we can't stop, and the actors just wanted to act. They wanted that opportunity to do something. So they just jumped on it, and I had wonderful people, and they really delivered all kinds of fun, music and reciting different things from classic winter tales and, some Christmassy kind of things, and, all different classics. And it was really a classy, event outdoors and when it snowed, it was even more beautiful. It was like a lantern tour, basically on our property in the woods and so on. It was really cool. So, that helped get people staying in the moment. That's what we had to do. Don't think we're going to go away. Don't think we're just going to fold up and go and never be back, or, struggle to be back. So that just kept us in the public eye. So then when it was time to actually do a show, people were coming back. And I think I'm getting a good feeling that it is going to come back in great throngs, because I'm a big believer in history repeating itself. It's going to be like the Roaring 20s, like we had the horrible, flu epidemic of 1918. Actually, my grandparents died in that, leaving my grandmother and her siblings an orphan. And that was, 100 years ago. And, and then we had the Roaring 20s. And I think it's going to be I think we're going to have another Roaring 20s on our hands soon. I'm hoping. I mean, there's a lot of conservatism as well, but that always ramps up the Roaring 20s a little more. So I think it's going to be an interesting time to be alive and see what's happening. I want people to come back to the theater because it's exciting and fun and something you can do with your family, with your kids, with a friend, whoever.
And Brendan, what about you? What's going to be happening, do you think, with theater in New York right now?
Well, I mean, we've already had an opportunity to see some amazing plays, some new plays that, they were in development before the pandemic happened, but they were timely then, and they're actually even more timely now. Two in particular, Passover, which was just had its Broadway run. It was brilliant. And one that I hope, I don't know what their plans are. I hope it goes to Broadway. It better go to Broadway because it's a masterpiece called On Sugarland by Alicia Harris. And both of these plays are have to do with the Black experience in America, and are different in their approaches to it, but masterpieces all the same. And they challenge your typical theater going audience, particularly your Broadway theater going audience, which is going to be a little bit older, a little bit more affluent because they can afford a Broadway ticket, and may or may not want their worldview challenged. And so I'm happy that theaters are putting on these kinds of plays that will be new experiences even for the majority of regular Broadway theater goers. So that's encouraging. That's really cool. And we need more of it. We need far more of it. Though, like, minority voices have been kept out of the big theaters and the major publications. So, we can't be satisfied with 2 plays. We need hundreds and hundreds, and we need to support the artists that are doing that. So I hope that continues. I hope that I can continue to be a patron of those things and support them just with my dollars and my patronage. So that's exciting. But there's a way to go. Like, there are still safety issues, and there's always money issues. So I agree with you, Zoe. I think the art that will come out of this time, if we are bold, will be incredible and world changing. And I hope that we can support that in any way we can.
I agree, and I love the diversity factor that is so vital, so important to the survival of the art. Let's go with that.
Yeah, it is so important that there's more inclusivity. If COVID has taught us anything, I think it's how much we have in common, and yet also how much we have dismissed people. When we were off air, Zoe, you were talking a little bit about some of the really the culture of company theater, which really has to do with inclusivity. And you made a point of demonstrating that. Can you talk a little bit about the story with him?
We were getting ready to open Something Rotten, and the day before, I know that the drama students at Hingham High School were preparing for a competition that it's a statewide competition that a lot of the high schoolers participate in. And as they had heard on the news that gay was not allowed in Florida and Texas, the students decided to stand in solidarity and have a walkout. Not a walkout of the whole school. They just walked out of the class to show their support. Well, unfortunately, as I have been told, the captain of several sports teams started off a catcalling situation, making them feel very bad and unsafe. And they decided to not perform their competition piece for the school body because they were afraid that they would be made fun of. And I just thought that was so sad. That's still happening here in 2022, where you'd think people would be more sensitive. And I heard there was really no, reprimand for the student. And I was so surprised about that. So anyway, through the some of the administration and one of the students, I said, I'm going to offer a free ticket I had just enough open seats that I could offer this drama club free tickets to Something Rotten that opening night, the night after. And then they came up on stage afterwards, met the cast, had their photograph taken with them. And we just wanted to show solidarity for them because they were just making a statement and were so, accused and belittled. And that's just not right. It was a small gesture, but the gestures add up. If everybody can step forward and do something for these kids, they know that they're not alone.
That's right. I'm getting goosebumps as you talk about that, because it's such a powerful statement and it's so important. And again, as we get later in the show, the I am approach, small changes have big effects. And I sure hope that small change, that gesture has a big effect. You control no one, you influence everyone, and you choose the kind of influence. And Zoe, that's a powerful influence on these kids, but and it's still happening. Brendan, was anything like that happening in the theater world? Because the theater in your world, it seems to be so inclusive, but have there been times where it's not?
Oh, of course. I mean, theater is a human endeavor, and it is an expression of the human condition, and so it is going to be made up of all different kinds of personalities and thoughts and sins, and you can't escape any of that stuff, no matter what you're doing. So the efforts now, I think the reckoning that happened over the last couple of years of recognizing where art and in the places where art and industry meet, there has been a failure to protect people, to promote dignity, to promote respect and safety. I think things like Actors Equity and other movements are trying to face that and do better, but it's always a work in progress, and we always need to be aware of how our behavior affects others and how the institutions that we put in place or the systems that we have in place affect others. And if we're failing, then we need to look back at that. And it's another reason why I will always sing the praises of the company theater, because they live that mission of being a family and being a real lifeline for kids and particularly young people in the community, but really everybody. Because parents and caretakers also benefit from having a place like the Company Theater that provides such a wonderful tent under which everybody is welcome. So the Company Theater represents the best of what theater can be, not just in its storytelling and its production value, but also in what it truly means to be part of a community. And I will always use that as a touchstone for myself in anything that I do and anybody that I interact with, and measure up. And I don't care how big the theater is or how big the industry is. I would measure it up to the way the Company Theater treats people.
Yeah. I remember when we went to the recognition of Geordie, and how it was said that all you need to do is audition. Just show up for the audition and you're part of Company Theater, and that it's so wonderful. All you need to do is show up and you're part of the family. I love that. I so love that.
Yeah, Geordie was so special that way because she made everybody feel like, they were family, and they're tough shoes to fill. I get very engrossed in an overall vision or a project that demands a lot of my artistic capabilities, and I always have to step back and think, what would Geordie be doing right now? Because I want to make sure that if it's whether you're from the LGBTQ community, whether you're a divorcee who's in a midlife crisis. I mean, I can't even tell you how many people's lives we've changed, and it's a trajectory that's been a lifeblood for me. I'm rewarded just by seeing other people find a place to be, even if it's for a little time or part of a lifetime, because everybody who comes through the door, at least most people feel like they can just come back. It might be 10 years later, but they can come back. They say, oh, I'm so glad to be back. Isn't that great?
Yeah, it is. It is incredible. And every time I go and see a show, I feel the same way. I feel like, oh, it's so nice to be home.
Yes, that's what people say.
So nice to be home.
Our Midwestern capability there.
I mean, it's fantastic. We were talking off air how human beings have spent millennia increasing their value by decreasing somebody else's, and then are astonished that the person does that in kind, and then are even more astonished it leads to war. It's happening in our world right now, over and over again. But we can do something different. And I think this is what theater is about, certainly what Company Theater is about. And what the IM is saying is, at every and any moment in time, you can remind someone of their value. And whenever you remind someone of their value, you increase your own value. That's because people begin to trust, and theater is all about trust. I mean, it really is. You're up there saying some lines, and you're trusting that the person who's next to you has memorized theirs and is going to give you the right cue. The IM, has 4 domains: the home domain, the social domain, the biological domain, the I see, how I see myself, how I think other people see me. And these 4 domains interact. So because they interact, a small change can have a big effect. You don't need to change everything, but a small change can have a big effect. Brendan, I'm going to ask you first. As we're talking about theater and coming out of COVID, what small change can you recommend to our listeners?
Go to a show. If you've never been to a theater show, musical, drama, Shakespeare, any of it, just go to one. Pick one. Go down the list, pick one and go. It's meant to challenge us, and it's meant to unite us. And if you're having hesitations about whether or not you feel like you'd understand it, or you think you don't like musicals, or maybe you think that the thing going up on stage is meant to be an attack against you and your political views or your lifestyle or whatever, that's a discussion worth having, but you can't have it unless you go and see the show. So if you've never been to one, or if it's been a while, or maybe you think you don't like something or would not like something, I challenge you to just go and live in that and see how that affects you.
Zoe?
Oh, man. I mean, Brendan kind of said the same thing I did. And I'd say, look and see what you think will appeal to you and do it. Don't, be discrepant, don't just say, oh, well, I've got to force myself to go to something, you know what I mean? Find out who's doing a good job out there, who's giving it their all, who's not just a drama club doing something to just satisfy themselves. It's somebody who's going to give you something back. And if people are committed to what they're doing up there, then you're going to have a great experience, So for me, I'd say my message is there's nothing like a live performance, just like there's nothing like, live sports or live, whatever you want to go to. But the live theater experience, if it's done well, with people who are believing in what they're doing, then you are in for a thrill. And it could be life-changing. And just one little line can change your whole way of thinking about something or feeling about something. It's amazing how it can give you the chills. It can make you feel elevated. It's an experience like no other. And, you can go to a movie and be really happy that other people are laughing or responding, or you can feel that energy. But it is not live. And that's the extra thrill that you get with good theater. Yeah. So absolutely find that and embrace it, because we need you to come.
Yeah, that's a small change. It can have a big effect. And the second truth is, go ahead.
Joe, can I just give a real quick real life example of why what Zoe's saying is incredibly important?
Sure.
Before I got into acting, I was into music before. I had a band, and that was my first love. But life happens, and that broke up, and I found myself creatively stagnant. And by happenstance, I had a friend who was working in Vegas at the time. He invited me for a long weekend, and he got us tickets to see Spamalot in Vegas, starring John O'Hurley of Seinfeld fame. And I, as a Python fan growing up, and never having seen a music before, I was like, okay, what's this about? And I had the best time. I laughed so hard. I was in awe of the performers and how they did it and how much fun they were having. And it put a kernel in my mind. I don't know, but maybe I could do that. I've done music. I've been on stage, but I've never done that. But maybe I could do that. And it led me down this journey of doing improv and sketch and some musicals and some dramas and things like that. And to the point it was 5 years later, I got to be in Spamalot at the Company Theater.
No.
And that's amazing.
Right.
It's wonderful.
And the way that the Company Theater operates further inspired me to try something else and to do it at that level. So yes, I can testify to what Zoe said about the importance of just trying something and going and seeing what happens.
Just try it. And just like you say, Brendan, I've had so many, and you are a perfect example because you're so darn talented, but people will walk in and they'll say, I've never done this before. And you're like, that's okay. We're here to teach you. We think you've got the potential to do this or that. And it may be something small and it may be something bigger. We might shock you and put you in something that you never thought you could do before. But we know, because that's what we do as directors. We can see it. We see the potential in people who walk in. And that's the beauty of it, is it could be a very big surprise for you.
Yeah. And that gets to the second truth of the I am, because everyone's interested in what you think about them. And that has an effect on their biological domain, because, it feels differently when you feel respected and valued than disrespected and devalued. This means you control no one, but you influence everyone. And you get to choose the kind of influence you want to be. So I'm going to start with you on this one. I think we already may know where we're going, but what kind of influence, Zoe Bradford, do you want to be?
Well, I am about a legacy. I'm going to be honest with you. I've been doing this my whole life, and that's why the pandemic wasn't going to take it away from me. I felt like if I can keep an atmosphere of creativity, inclusiveness, excitement, live music, incredible shows. It feels like Broadway. And once in a while, we just jump away from Broadway and we do something creative and new. or we do an original work. Actually, I'm working on one, and we'll do a whole nother show on that, Dr. Joe, I'm sure. But it's that kind of thing. I just want to be sure that I'm laying a groundwork that it's going to live far beyond what I live. I just want to see it going from generations to generation. And that's a beautiful thought, because life changes and we don't know what those changes are going to be. Look at how many changes happened in the pandemic for all of us. But human nature is going to stay the same. And I want to be there. I want my organization to be there to nurture it.
Yeah. And you have had an influence on so many. Brendan.
More than I ever thought.
Yeah. I'm going to close it up with you. You control no one, you influence everyone. You get to choose the kind of influence you want to be. Brendan Mulhern, what kind of influence do you want to be?
Well, as an actor and an artist, over the last couple of years, we've had the time to take an audit at what we're doing and how we're actually going to affect people. And it's been hard, but necessary at times for me as a white, cis, het male. And if those terms make you bristle a little bit, I just want to ask you to breathe. Whoever's listening, just breathe for a second and just
He's cool. He's cool, really.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. It's cool. It's fine. What is my responsibility? Not just as a very privileged person in this world and in this industry. What is my responsibility to the audience and to people who listen? I guess I would just sum it up by saying I hope that the company theater and places like that do a great job of welcoming people in and making them feel good. What I would like to be able to do in my acting, whether it's through a character or a play or something I direct or whatever, is that athletic captain who made fun of those performers and their fellow classmates, their fellow human beings. If I can get that person to stop for a second and just think and go and see themselves in a character that I play, or even just me as a person, and go, wait a minute, there's a different way. I can be a better person. We can be better people. That's where I feel like I will do my best work. So as somebody who's of a certain stature, certain sound, certain build, who am I gonna have an effect on? I feel like that's the one I would like to be able to go, oh, I can be better.
Bravo on that one.
Yeah. That's a great mission, great influence. I just want to thank both of you for coming on tonight, because as you know, theater has a very special place in my heart as well, and as do both of you. So thank you so much. Tom, thanks for putting it together. And everyone, go see the show. Make that small change, buy a ticket right now. Something's Rotten at Company Theater, and put in the word Joe. You get $8 off. How cool is that? All right, everybody.
If I didn't sell it for you with the PP thing, I don't know what will.
Yeah, right.
Nothing would. That's exactly right.
All right. Good night, everyone. Thank you.
All right. Nice
see you
to
next
see
week.
you. Thank you, Brendan, for being on. It was great to see you.
An honor, Zoe. Thank you.